Good evening and welcome to Ancient Irish Tales. This tale is called The Wooing of Etain. The Wooing of Etain. This story is part of the Tales of the Tuatha de Danna, part of the Ancient Irish Tales. The Wooing of Etain, composed in its oldest form as early as the 8th century, so a long time ago. And it's one of the most charming pieces of romantic fiction perceived by the vernacular literature of medieval Europe. Though, unfortunately, the story exists only in a series disconnected from the multitude fragments, enough remains to illustrate admirably the high developed style and delicate treatment of the sentiment which characterizes ancient Irish literature. In her early career, not recounted here, Etain is associated not only with metre, but also with Angus Och, as well as supernatural personages who figures in the mythological cycle. According to the annals, her mortal husband, Elroch Adrim, became High King of Ireland about 134 BC. The Wooing of Etain is connected with the destruction of the Dadurga's hostel. That will be coming up. By the fact that Eaton's grandson, King Condamore, meets his death as a result of Ecred having destroyed the ferry mound at Berylithen. Whether Etain had been abducted by Midr. Now, on with the story. There's an admirable noble king in the high kingship over Ireland, namely Ecred Aram. The first year he was ascended to the throne, a proclamation was made throughout Ireland that the Feast of Tara was to be celebrated and that all men of Ireland should attend it, and that their taxes and levies might be known. And the one answer made by all men of Ireland to Alric's summons was that they would not attend the Feast of Tara during such time, whether it be long or short, as the King of Ireland was without wife, and that was suitable for him. For there was not a nobleman of Ireland who was without wives suitable for him, and there was not a king without a queen, and there would not come a man without his wife to the Feast of Tara, nor would there come a woman without a husband. Thereupon Ecred sent out from his horsemen and his entertainers and his spies and his messengers and boarders throughout Ireland, that they search all of Ireland for a woman who should be suitable for the king in respect to form and grace and countenance and birth. And besides all this, there was one more condition regarding her. The king would never take a wife who has been given to anyone else before him. And the king's officers sought all of Ireland, both south and north, and they found at Inver Corspany a woman suitable for him, and that is Etain, the daughter of Ether, who was king of Ecred. Then his messengers returned to Ecred and gave him a description of the maiden in regard to form and grace and countenance. And Ecred sent forth to take the maiden, and the way that he went was across the fair green of Berylithen. And there he saw a maiden sat upon the brink of a spring.
Motion detected at the lookout into back car.
She held her hand a comb of silver decorated with gold. Beside her, as for washing, was a basin of water, whereupon were chased 4 golden birds. And there were little bright gems, carbuncles set in the rim of the basin, and a cloak pure purple hanging in the folds about her, and beneath it a mantle of silver borders, and a brooch of gold in a garment over her bosom, a tunic with long hood about her, and as for its smally glossy, it was made of greenish silk before red embroidery of gold and marvellous bow pins of silver gold upon her breast, in a tunic, so that the redness of the gold against the sun in the grass, in the green silk, was clearly visible to the men. 2 tresses of golden hair upon her head, and a planting of 4 strands in each tree, and a ball of gold upon each of the petals.
Motion detected at the lookout into
And the
back
maiden
car.
was there loosening her hair to wash it, and her 2 arms out there through the armshole of her smock, as white as the snow. And one night was each of her 2 arms, and as red as a foxglove of a mountain was each of her 2 cheeks. As blue as a heather was each of her 2 eyes. Delicately red was her lips, very high, soft, and white her 2 shoulders. Tender, smooth, and white were her 2 wrists. 2 fingers long and very white her nails, pink and beautiful, as white as the snow, or as the foam in the wave. Was her side, slender, long, and soft as silk. Smooth white were her thighs. Round and small, firm were her 2 knees. As straight as a ruler were her 2 ankles. Slim and foaming white were her 2 feet. Fair and very beautiful were her 2 eyes, and eyebrows blackish blue like the shell of a beetle. It was she, the maiden, who was the fairest and most beautiful that the eyes of men had ever seen. And it seemed probable to the king and his companions that she was out of the fairy mound. This is the maiden concerning whom spoke the proverb. Every lovely form must be tested by Etain, every beauty by the standard of Etain. A desire for her seized the king immediately, and he sent a man of his company to hold her before him. Then Eithra approached the maiden and questioned her. "Whence art thou, O maiden? And whence hast thou come?" said the king. "Not hard to answer," replied the maiden. "Etain, the daughter of the king of Eithra, out of the fairy mounds I am called." "Shall I have the honour of delayance with thee?" said Eithra. "It is for that I have come hither upon thy protection," said she. "I've been here for 20 years, since I was born in the fairy mound, and the men of the fairy mound, both kings and nobles, have been wooing me. And naught was got by any of them from me, because I have loved thee and given love and affection to thee since I was a little child. And since I was culpable of speaking, it was for noble tales about thee, for thy splendor, that I have loved thee. And although I've never seen thee before, I recognize thee at once by thy description. It is thou I know to whom I have attended," she said. "That is by no means an invitation of a bad friend," replied Eithra. "Thou shalt be welcomed by me, and all other women shall be left for thy sake. And with thee alone I will live as long as it is pleasing to thee." "Give me my fitting bride price," said the maiden, "and thereafter let my desire be fulfilled." "That shall be to thee," said king. The value of 7 bond slaves, was given to her for a bride price, and after that he took her with him to Tuatha, and a truly hearty welcome was given to her. Now, there were 3 brothers, one blood, who was the sons of Finn, Ecample Aram, and Esser O'Philach, and Elle Ecample, and Elil of the one stain, because the only stain that was upon him was that he loved his brother's wife. That at the time came the men of Ireland to hold the feast of Tuatha, and they were there 14 days before Simonius, and 14 days after Simonius. It was a feast of Tuatha that Tuatha fell in love with Etain, daughter of Eithar. Alla gazed the woman as long as he was at the feast of Tuatha, and Al's wife, the daughter of Lochal Redhand from the borders of Leinster, said to her husband, "Al," she said, "why dost thou keep gazing far off from thee? For such a long looking is a sign of love." Thereupon Ali became ashamed and blamed himself for that thing. And he did not look at Etain after that. After the feast of Tara, the men of Ireland separated from one another. And then it was that the pains of jealousy and great envy filled Aran, and a heavy illness came upon him. As a result, he was carried from Dunfermline in Tubra, a favourite stronghold of his brother king. Remained there till the end of a year, in long sickness and long pining, but he did not confess the cause of his sickness to anyone. And hither came Ecample, inquiring after Ali, and put his hand upon Ali's breast, whereupon Ali heaved a sigh. Now, said Ecample, the sickness in thou which does not appear to be serious. How is everything with thee? By my word, replied Ali, it's not easier it is with me, but who's in all respect every day and every night. What ails thee? Asked Ecample. By my true word, said Ali, I do not know. Let there be brought to me one who shall make known the cause of this illness. Then was brought to them Facina, the physician of Etain, and Facina was put a hand upon Alice's breast and Alice's side. Now, said Facina, the matter is not serious. There is nothing the matter with thee but one of two things, and that's either the pains of jealousy or love which thou hast given and thou hast found no help till now. Thereupon Ali was ashamed. He did not confess the cause of his illness to the physician, and the physician went from him. Now, as regard to Ecample, he went out to make his royal circuit throughout Ireland, and he left Etain at the stronghold of Freeman, and he said to her, deal gently with Etain. As long as he is living, he is alive, and should he die, have his grave of sod dug, and let his pillar stone be raised, and let his name be written upon it in Ogam. The king then declared on his royal circuit of Ireland, leaving Ali there in Dunfermline, in expectation of death and delusion for the space of that year. Into the house in which Alan was, Etain used to go each day for countless to minister on him. One day she asked him, what is the matter with thee? The sickness is indeed great, and if we knew anything that would satisfy thee, thou dost give it from us. It was thus that he spoke, and he sang a little lay, and Ellen answered her. As a result of their dialogue, Etain finally understands that her brother-in-law is suffering from love of herself. Etain continued to come every day to Ellen and bathe him, and to divide his food for him. And she helped him greatly, for she was sad at seeing him perish because of her. One day she said to Ellen, come tomorrow at daybreak to thrust with me in the house that stands outside the stronghold, and there shalt thou be granted thy request and desire. On that night Ellen lay with sleep until coming morning, and when the time had come that was appointed for this tryst, his sleep lay heavy upon him, so that till the hour of his rising he lay deep in sleep. And Etain went to trust, nor had she long to wait, ere she saw a man coming towards her, in likeness of Elil, weary and feeble, and she knew it was not Elil, and continued waiting for Elil. The lady came back from her tryst, and Elil woke, and thought that he would rather die than live. And he was in great sadness and grief that the lady came to speak with him, and when he told her what has befallen him, come, she said, to the same place to meet with me tomorrow. And upon the morrow it was the same upon as the first day. Each day came the same man to her tryst, and she came again upon the last day and appointed the tryst, and the same man met her. 'Tis not with thee that I tryst, she said. Why dost thou come and meet me? And for him who would have met here, neither from desire of his love nor fear of harm from him, I had appointed to meet him, but only heal him, and to cure him from the sickness which he has upon him for his love of me. It was more fitting for thee to come and tryst with me, said the man, for when thou wast Thou wast a daughter and king of Etain when thou hast wist the daughter of Alul. I myself was thy first husband. Why? What is thy name at all if thou hast been demanded of thee? It's not hard to answer thee, he said. Midra Brilach is the name. And what made thee part from me if I were as thou sayest? Said Etain. Easy again to answer, said Midra. It was the sorcery of Fimnach, the spells of Bersayarum, that put us apart. And Mercer said to Etain, Wilt thou come with me? Nay, answered Etain, I will not exchange the king of all Ireland for thee, for a man whose kindred and whose lineage is unknown. It was I myself indeed, said Mercer, who filled all the mind of Eithel with love for thee. And it was also I who prevented his coming to thrust with thee, and allowed him not to spoil thy honour. After all, this lady went back to her house, and she came to speak with Eithel, and she greeted him. It hath happened well for both of us, said Elul, that the man met thee there, for I am cured for ever from my illness. Thou also hast the art of unhurt in thine honour, and may blessings rest upon thee. Thanks be to our God, said Eithel, that both of us do indeed deem that all hath chanced so well. And after that Eithel came back from his royal progress, and he asked at once for his brother, and the tale was told to him from beginning to end. And the king was grateful to Eithel in that she was gracious to Elul, and what hath thou been relaying in this tale is well pleasing to ourselves. Now, upon another time it chanced to Ecample that the king of Tuatha arose from certain fair the daytime in the summer, and that he ascended the high ground to Tuatha to behold the plan of Brig. Beautiful was the colour of that plain, that there was upon an excellent bosom growing with all the hues known. And as Asphalt looked upon around him, he saw a young strange warrior upon the high ground on his side, and the tunic of that warrior wore was purple in colour, and his hair was of golden yellow, and of such a length that it reached the edge of his shoulders. And his eyes of the younger warrior was luscious and grey. In the one hand he held a 5-pointed spear, in the other a shield with a white central boss, with gems of gold upon it. And Eithred held his pace, for he knew that none such has been in Tuatha on the night before. And at the gate that led into the enclosure it had not an hour been thrown open. The warrior came and placed himself under the protection of Eithred, and said, Welcome do I give thee, said Eithred, to a hero who is yet unknown. Their reception is such as I expected when I came, said the warrior. Well, we know of thee, answered Eckhard, and yet thee in truth I know well, he replied. What is the name by which thou art called? Said Eckhard. My name is not known or to renown, said the warrior. I am Midr of Brileth, and for what purpose had thou art come? I have come that I may play a game of chess with thee, answered Midr. Truly? I myself am skilled for all chess play. Let us test that skill, said Midr. Nay, said Eithred, the queen is even now in her sleep, and hers is the apartment in which the chessboard lies. I have here with me a chessboard which is not inferior to thine. It was, said Midr, and even as he said that, for the chessboard was silver, and the men to play with were gold, and upon that board were close stones casting their light on every side, and the bag that held the men was of woven chains and brass. Midr then set on a chessboard, and he called upon Eithred to play. I will not play, said Eithred, unless we play for a stake. What stake shall we have upon the game, then? Said Midr. It's indifferent to me, said Eithred. Then, said Midr, if thou dost obtain forfeit of my stake, I will bestow on thee 50 steeds of dark grey, their heads of blood-colour red, but dappled,
Motion detected
their
at the
ears
beginning.
pricked high,
You're
and
at
their
the back
chests
door.
broad, and their nostrils wide, and their hoofs slender, great is their strength, and they're keen like a wretched edge. Eager are they, high standing and spirited, yet easily stopped in their course. Several games were played between Echard and Murder, and since Murder did not put forth the whole strength, the victory on all occasions rested with Echard. But instead of gifts which Mer offered, Echard demanded that Mer and his folk should perform for him services which should benefit to his realm, that he should never clear away the rocks and stones from the plains of Meath, should remove all the rushes from which made the land barren around the favourite fort in Tuatha, and should cut down the forest of Berg, and finally should build a causeway across it, across the moor or bog of Lamach, that men might pass freely across it. All these things Muir agreed to do, and Uther sent his steward to see how that work was done. And when it came time after sunset, the steward looked, and he saw Muir and his fairy host together with fairy oxen were labouring at the causeway over the bog, and thereupon much of the earth and gravel and stones was poured into it. Now, it had before that time always been custom of the men of Ireland to harness their oxen with strap over their forehead, so that they might pull against the foreheads of the oxen, and this is the custom lasted up to that very night. For when it was seen that the fairy folk had placed the yoke upon the shoulders of the oxen, so that its pull may be there, and in this way were the yokes of the oxen afterwards placed by Ethel, and henceforth the name of which is known even by Ethel known as Ethel the Ploughman, for he was the first of all the men of Ireland to put yokes on the necks of ox, and thus became a custom of the land of Ireland. And this is the song of hosts the fairies sang as they laboured to make the road. Thrusted in hand, forested in hand, noble this knight and troop of oxen, hard is the task that is asked, and who from the brink of Lochlan shall rise of grain no harm. Not in all the world could the road be found that should be better than the road that they made. It had not been that the fairy folk were observed as they walked upon it, for that with cause breach it had been made in the causeway. And the steward of Ethel therefore came to him, and he described to him that the great labouring brand had come before his eyes, and he said there was at last not over the chariot pole of life and power that could withstand its might. And they spoke thus with each other. And they saw Mary stand before him, and the high care was Git, and ill-favoured was the face that he showed. And Etain arose, and he gave welcome to him. The welcome is such as I expected when I came. Cruel and senseless hast thou been in thy treatment of me, and much of the hardship and suffering hast thou given. All things that seemed good in thy sight have I got for thee, but now anger against thee has filled my mind. I return not anger for anger, asked Etain. What thou wist should be done. Let it be asked thou wished, said Mother. Shall we play chess, he said. And what stake shall set upon the game, said Ethel. Even as such stake as the winner of it shall demand. And at that very place, Ethel was defeated, and he forfeited his stake. My stake is forfeited to thee, said Ethel. Had I wished it, it had been forfeited long ago, said Mother. What is what thou dearest me to grant? That I may hold Ithra in my arms and obtain a kiss from her, answered Mother. Ethel was silent for a while, and then he said, 1 month from this day thou shalt come, and that very thing that thou hast asked shall be given to thee. Now for a year before that Mother first came to Ethel for chess play, and had been at the wooing of Etain. And he obtained her not, and the name which he gave Etain was Beefend, or fair-haired woman. So that it was said, Wilt thou come with me, fair-haired woman? As it had been recited, and if at the same time Etain said, If thou abstainest me from who is the master of my house, I will go, But if they are not able to obtain me from him, then I will not go. And thereupon Murder came to Ecgtheow and allowed him at the first to win the victory over him, in order that Ecgtheow should stand in his debt, and therefore is that he buried great stakes which he had agreed. Therefore it was which he demanded that she should play a game of ignorance of what was at stake. And when Murder and his folk were playing those agreed upon stakes, they played upon that night to Wilt making the road, and clearing of the stones and rushes round Tuatha, and the force of the brag, and it is thus that he spoke, as it is written in the book of Domshinda. Pile on the soil, thrust on the soil. Red are the oxen who labor. Heavy and troops that obey my words. Heavy they seem, and yet men are they. Strongly as piles of the tree trunks placed, red are the wattles above them. Tired are your hands in the great slant. One woman's whining is toil may leave. Oxen ye are, but revenge shall see. Men who are white shall be your servants. Rushes from Tara are cleared. Grief is the price that men shall pay. Stones have been cleared from the rough mytha ground. Who shall the grain or harm be? Now Merr appointed a day at the end of the month when he was to meet Ecgtheow, and Ecgtheow called the armies of heroes to Ireland together, so that they came to Tara at the best, all the best of champions of Ireland, ringing within ring, were about Tara, and they were in the midst of Tara itself, and they guarded it both without and within. And the king and queen were in the midst of the palace, and now the court was shut and locked, for they knew that the great night of men would come upon them. And upon the appointed night, Etain was dispensing a banquet to the kings. For it was her duty to pour the wine in the midst of the talk. She saw Murder stand before them in the centre of the palace. He was always fair, yet fairer than he was ever seen to meet her upon this night. And he brought amazement to all the hosts on which she gazed. And thereupon was silent. And the king gave welcome to him. Thy reception is such as I expected when I came, said Murder. Let it now be given to me that has been promised. 'Tis a debt that is due when a promise hath been made, and I for my part have given thee all that was promised by me. I have not yet considered the matter, said Ecgtheow. Thou hast promised Etain very self to me, said Murder. That is what has come from thee. Etain blushed for shame when she heard that word. Blush not, said Murder to Etain, for in no wise has the wedding feast been disgraced. I have been seeking thee for a year with the fairest jewels and treasures that can be found in Ireland, and I have not taken thee until the time came when Ecgtheow might permit it. 'Tis now, though, any will of thine that I have won thee. I myself told thee, until Ecgtheow should resign me to me, I would not grant thee anything. Take me then for my part, if Ecgtheow is willing to resign me to thee. But I will not resign thee to thee, said Ecgtheow. Nevertheless, he shall take thee in his arms upon the floor of this house, as thou art, and it shall be done, said Murder. He took his weapons in his left hand, and the woman beneath his right shoulder, and he carried her off through the smoke hole of the house. And the hosts rose up around the king, for they felt that they had been disgraced. And they saw two swans circling around Tara. And the way that they took was the way to the Elfland of Femen. And Ecgtheow with an army of men to Ireland went to the Elfland of Femen, which the men call the Mound of the fair-haired woman. And he followed the counsel of the men of Ireland, and he dug up each of the elf mounds, that he might take his wife from hence. And Murder and his host opposed them, and the war between them was long. Again and again trenches made Ecgtheow were destroyed. For 9 years, as some say, lasted the strife of the men of Ireland to enter the ferry place, and when the last armies of Ecgtheow came by digging the borders of the ferry mound, a Bertlitter and Murder set to the side of place these 60 women, all in the shape of Etain. So like to her, none could tell which was the queen, and Etain himself was deceived. And instead of choosing Etain, her daughter, Mrs. Boothrow, or some say Issa, But when he found that he had been deceived, he returned again to seek Bugleth, and this time Etain made herself known to Ethel by proofs that he could not mistake. And he bore her away in triumph to Tara, and there she abode with the king. Another version of the story adds, it was on this account that the fairy folk of Megbri and Murder and Briloch broke the taboos of Conquer and ended his life, and brought upon the laying of waste of Morberg, because of the destruction of Litha and Ethel Autumn taking away Etain by force. Join me tomorrow when we shall tell another story. Enjoy, good night,